YouTube, all the streams. We might be going out on LinkedIn today. Not our LinkedIn, but our guest LinkedIn. So keep an eye out for that. Karen Walwyn's LinkedIn. We will get started here right now. I'm going to do some intros of the program to get our context in place, and then we'll jump right into it. We've got a exciting presentation from today's guest as well, but we'll also do a little bit of interview time as we traditionally do. Change my microphone. Can you still hear me?
I hear you.
Okay, good. I was just changing my microphone input. Should have changed a little bit. Okay, wonderful. Well, I'd love to just set the context for anybody that's tuning in on the stream. And we have to did we let people in? Oh, we have to admit people. Let's do that. Hello, everyone. Hey there, welcome everyone. Sorry, I was just actually, I thought we had let you in and I was a little distracted. Hello, everyone on Zoom. Thanks for showing up today. And I was just saying hello out to the people on Facebook and letting them know that they can also join on Zoom. We'll put some links in the chat so that that's possible. And I will intro the program so everybody gets the context and we'll roll right into it. It's going to be a fun session today with some interview, but also a little bit of a presentation that our guest has prepared for today. So we appreciate that. And we'll get started here. So welcome, first of all, to Piano Tech Radio Hour. What we do here is we gather every Saturday to meet with and learn from the most fascinating and knowledgeable folks in the piano world, including manufacturers, rebuilders, musicians, makers of other instruments, and of course, piano techs. Our mutual goal is to become better at our craft, to help each other, to create an ever more musical world together. Piano Tech Radio Hour is brought to you by Piano Technicians Masterclasses, an online learning resource that brings you cutting-edge instruction from piano industry masters without leaving your home. You can find out more at pianotechniciansmasterclass.com. You can also subscribe to Radio Hour, this program, for just $16 a month. You get direct access to each week's private Zoom call, as well as all the archival recordings of over 200 episodes in our member area. Join using the link bit.ly/joinptrh. That's bit.ly/joinptrh. And don't forget about our podcast, which can be found at pianotechradio.com. That's audio-only versions of these programs. You can check that out while you're working in the workshop, driving around, doing the dishes, however you like to listen. And we're popular all over the world. We've reached top 100, top 10, even #1 status in various locales on the Apple iTunes category of performing arts. So you'll be in good company if you're listening on the podcast. We also have a blog on Substack. You can search for us on Substack, and you'll find some really useful information there about the advanced topics that we cover inside the Masterclasses member area. Once you're inside, you'll learn about all these things that you wondered about but you can't find elsewhere. Information on voicing, regulation, concert prep, piano history, piano construction, piano design, very high level stuff that I'm sure you'll appreciate. So check out the blog for a little bit of a sneak preview. If you like what you see, you can dive in deeper. You can also find us on the socials, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter, and join the email list on our website at pianotechniciansmasterclass.com. It's really obvious. Just type your name in or your email and hit go, and then you'll get updates on what's going on with our projects. So without further ado, I would love to introduce today's guest. Her name is Karen Walwyn. She's an international Steinway artist, composer, and leading voice in the revival of Florence Price's music. As the first African-American female pianist and composer to earn this prestigious title, Karen has premiered and recorded major work by Price and released acclaimed solo recordings that have brought new life to her legacy. She's also a professor at Berklee College of Music and an award-winning composer in her own right. The concert stage to the classroom, Karen is a powerful advocate for inclusive classical music and the untold stories behind it. Welcome to Piano Tech Radio Hour, Karen.
Thank you.
Pleasure to have you here.
I'm going to have to hire you to be my publicist.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. I'm what do you call it? I'm available for hire.
Thank you for having me
Welcome to the
here
program.
today.
Yeah, we talked a little bit beforehand, and since you do have a presentation and we want to do some interview, I usually maybe go a little bit into the background and history of our guests, but I'd love to just sort of jump right in. People have heard a little bit from your bio about your accomplishments and your situation, and we did want to talk a bit about your work as a composer and like give people an exposure to that. So, um, in the spirit of what I typically do, just give us like one little facet of how the baby Karen Walwyn got into all of this and how that connects us to the composer and researcher and performer that you are today.
Well, that's a good question. I think from what my mom told me, her mother, my grandmother, said to her one day, apparently I was doing something at the piano, and my grandmother, who I never heard play or saw, but apparently she was um, an organist, she said she needs to have piano lessons. And so my father was my first piano teacher, and I was probably around 3 or 4. And I think I remember having arguments with him. And so I don't think it got too far. And so
Mhm.
eventually I went on to have lessons outside of the home. But fast forward, I ended up um, going to finish my bachelor's degree at University of Miami and my master's degree in piano performance at University of Miami, studying with Dr. J.B. Floyd, and who I'm still in touch with today. He's my mentor and an amazing, amazing person in my life. And went to University of Michigan, and again, piano performance. And so I never knew anything about composition at all. It wasn't until when I was living in Spain and it was a different environment. I was married at the time. Everything in my life was different. And one day I thought, there's got to be something more than what I'm doing right now to make my life feel richer. And so I sat at the piano and I wrote 4 measures, maybe. I was in the middle of doing these recordings. As a matter of fact, the I have 2 volumes of Dark Fires, works by African American composers, and I um, I said, well, maybe I can write. I don't know. And after 4 measures, I was like, oh my God, I can't do this. And so I put the pencil down, and that was it. And so it wasn't until later that summer I came back from Spain to visit my mom and my stepdad in Virginia. And on the day of travel back to Spain happened to be the day of 9/11. And I was on a Greyhound bus arriving to Dulles Airport when everybody was trying to rush out of the airport. I'm not knowing anything. There's no information. It's 11 o'clock, and I have 2 big suitcases trying to get to the KLM station to get onto the plane. And the lady at the counter was looking at me like, where did I think I was going? And I had no idea. So, stunningly, of course, I would learn what had happened. And long story short, by the time I got back to Spain, I went to the piano and I started writing. And I just don't understand.
Mm.
I so the first work that I ended up writing was Reflections on 9/11, which ended up being a work for piano, 57 minutes long, and it received a global award. And so I don't
That's
have an
pretty good for your
explanation.
first composition.
So I, I try not to ask too many questions. But
Congratulations on that.
thank you, thank you. So the balance of performing and composing is on one hand a challenge to keep up with both, but one feeds the other. And so each time that I'm learning a work of someone else, I'm getting ready to perform, I coming at it from 2 perspectives, and it brings a much deeper sense of appreciation for the composer. And that was something that I wouldn't have otherwise anticipated, growing up, of course.
Yeah, the way things change. How long were you in Spain when you were there?
I was there for 6 years. Lived in
Oh, you were
Barcelona.
living in Spain. Wow.
Yeah,
Barcelona.
yeah.
Barcelona is such a beautiful city. I
It
love it.
is. It is.
I love how it's like a little maze and around every corner there's some, oh wow, like a cool little shop here or whatever. Yeah.
Oh, don't mention shopping.
Uh,
My favorite side thing to do.
yeah, wonderful. Well, yeah, I know we're trying to crunch a lot into the space here. So we were going to show a performance or sorry, a composition of yours
Hmm.
uh for Spangled Hearts. Yes. Is that the one we want to
Yeah.
show? Okay.
Yeah.
And I think I have the video queued up. Should we just bring that so people can start to get a sense of your artistry?
Okay. This is a work that was commissioned um, back, I think it was in 2016 or 17, and it was one of the anniversaries actually of 9/11. And so for viola and cello.
Okay. Wonderful. I will share here momentarily. Oh, come on, here. Where are you, Zoom? Here we go. And
I think this might be in the middle of the first movement.
there's that. We share the audio. All right. Does that view look appropriate?
Yes.
Okay. Let's get into it.
I'm not hearing anything.
You can't hear it?
I can't hear
Hmm.
it.
Hmm. Let me retry. I'm sharing sound. Maybe I'll just share my whole screen and we'll see if that helps us. All right. Try again. You hear it?
No.
No. Can other people hear it? Sometimes some people can hear it, some people can't. Anybody in the
Mm-mm.
chat? No sound.
No sound.
Here. Mm, what do I do? Give me a second. I mean, I've got all the settings correctly. Wonder if there's something going on with the browser. Um, all right, let me put it in a different browser, I guess. It's such an odd thing. While I'm loading that up, um, we can talk a little bit more about your compositions here. So your first composition, uh, tell me again what was the instrumentation because you're a pianist here,
I'm
and
a pianist. The
we're gonna
very
see it.
first the very first piece I wrote was for piano, and that
Okay,
was Reflections on 9/11. And then the next piece I wrote was actually a work to honor Nelson Mandela. I ended up getting to have a chance to go to South Africa on a oh my gosh, it was a one an award that took me to Duke. Oh, it was a Mellon Faculty Award. Took me to Duke University, and I had a chance to go to South Africa and meet lots of people that were very close to Nelson Mandela. And so I ended up writing a 67-minute choral work to honor his 67 years to service. And after that, I happened to be on Facebook one day and I said, something about a composition, and a friend of mine from Barcelona said, well, have you written anything for French horn, or have you written for French horn? I said, well, no, not yet. And so then she invited me to write what would end up being three works for French horn. So that that's um, I'm very honored that she wrote to me, and I think from there things just started to grow.
amazing. I can't imagine writing some of your, you know, just getting started with composition and then getting into all these different instrumentations as well and doing such a wonderful job at it. All right, let's cross our fingers. I put it in a different browser. I
Okay.
have the share sound setting on, so did that work? Did you
I'm
hear something?
not hearing anything.
Well, what the heck is going on here? Wow. Oh, you know what?
Well,
I actually heard somebody say this earlier today. They said that Zoom is supposed to, you have to do an update today on Zoom. I bet you that's what it is. Um, Let me see if I can just share the sound of it. The video is great, but sometimes let me see if the sound only works.
Okay.
Computer audio. All right, cross my fingers on this. All right, get it to the starting point, 32. All right. Can you hear it now? No,
I don't hear
that
anything.
is so unfair. That is so unfair. Oh, well, apologies to everyone. Yeah, I think Zoom requires an update. I did not get a chance to. I literally just heard that it like maybe half hour ago. Um, you can try sharing it. I don't know if that's gonna work, but do you want to try? Do you have a Zoom?
Uh,
Can you queue it up on YouTube? I can, or do you want to just?
um, let me think about it. How can I get there? I
I've
can
got an idea. I've got
what?
an idea. You start your presentation.
Okay.
I don't actually need to be here, during your presentation. I'll hand over the host to someone else. I'll jump off. I'll reset my Zoom. Make sure I get the update. And then
Hmm.
afterwards, maybe we can listen. There you
Okay.
go. Look, I'm creative and smart. I did it. Okay.
All right.
All right.
So
Let's get into your presentation, sooner than later. Yeah.
I'm going to click on share.
That we tested it works. Do you have audio in your presentation? I forget.
Yes.
Okay, I have your presentation and I'll grab it, and if there's audio, I'll bring it in when after I update.
Now, okay, so how will I know if folks can hear?
We'll have them tell you. Justice, are you there? Justice especially can tell you, but other people in the room will be able to say something. They'll just they'll say something in the chat. How early do you have the audio in there? Sooner or later?
Probably inside of the next 3 minutes.
Okay. Yeah, give it just go. I'm gonna hand it over to you, and I'm gonna try to be back and refreshed
Okay.
as soon as possible. Oops,
All
I
right.
have to
Okay.
actually.
All right. Well, I would like to start by saying inside of the last uh, few years, my life also began to include composer Florence Price. And that came about because back in 2010, it was the Center of Black Music Research in Chicago that invited me to record, perform and record, which would be the premiere performance and recording of the Florence Price concerto. And the reason that this came up, for those of you that may not know, Florence Price, by the way, who is noted as the first female African American composer to gain national status. She's from Little Rock, Arkansas. And she had her symphony performed with the Chicago Symphony Orchestra back in the 1930s, early 1930s. And so um, upon her death in the 1950s, it was not until 2009 that her music was the majority of her music that had seemed to have been lost was rediscovered. And upon that discovery, the Center of Black Music Research would go ahead and be the first to do the recording of both the symphony in E minor and the concerto. And what makes this a very important moment is because when Florence was living, she was actually becoming quite well respected, well known. She was looking forward to traveling across to Europe, where some of her works were getting ready to be performed. But unfortunately, she died quite prematurely. But getting back to the time that I got to do this recording is when my life and Florence's would merge, if you will. And so this is a copy of that recording, which you can probably find almost anywhere at this point. It was an amazing time. I didn't know much about Florence Price in 2009, but because of that recording, I was asked to participate and perform in a documentary, which was done by Dr. Greason, James Greason. And this documentary was The Caged Bird, The Life and Music of Florence Price. And as well, this can be found pretty much anywhere online at this point. And it was a wonderful documentary that introduces Florence Price. And that brings me to the question, who and why do we talk about Florence Price today? Back in 2015, 2016, 2017, we were slowly discovering the music. The music, for those of you that may not know, once her music was discovered at her actual abandoned summer home, the couple that purchased the music would eventually get it over to the University of Arkansas in special collections. And that is where the majority of her music still resides, unedited. But Florence Price, to me, is an American composer that had the capacity and foresight and imagination and creativity to weave in characteristics of rhythms and music from West Africa, America, and Europe together in a way that shares her story, shares her heritage in a beautiful way, but represents what I believe she sees what America could look like if we were all in one room today without any idea of where we may have come from, but we're there together to share in a human experience, to be able to leave that room and feel uplifted the way her music does, to help unite us together, is what I believe her message is in her music. And so for me, she's my American hero. And as the more that I got to learn about her, the more of an understanding that I try to bring into my performances. And it's really quite an amazing journey that I have had coming to learn who Florence Price is. I'll start, there's so much to talk about Florence Price, and so what I'm going to do, I will click through some, you might see me pass through some slides just because of time, but I'll start from the beginning at least. Florence Price, of course, born in Little Rock in 1887. She came to recognition upon winning the Wanamaker composition competition, and as I mentioned, would then have her symphony performed with the Chicago Symphony Orchestra. And so now I'm just trying to figure out, oh, that's how I do that. Okay. She also had a sonata that won first prize, and that was $250, and also won first prize in the song category, where she, actually not her, sorry, student of Florence Price. I typically don't read, and so then when I read, I get messed up. So I do know what I'm saying. I'm wondering if sound works now. So I'm going to give it a shot.
Give it a try. I'm here now, and I have your presentation if we need it.
Oh, there we are. Okay.
You got it. It works.
Here is a little bit of her symphony, so you can just hear the beauty. She wrote for symphony. She wrote chamber works, concerti, choral, voice, and as I mentioned, a lot of her music is still in special collections, waiting to be edited and published. But probably about a third of her music is out. And one thing that I wanted to mention very quickly, when we did the concerto was not fully orchestrated. The actual orchestration had to be created because we didn't have those parts at the time. What was available was the piano score and a copy of the two piano score and a three piano score original copies by Florence Price. And so composer Trevor Western was the composer that would actually orchestrate that the rest of the concerto to bring it together. And here's an example of a little bit of the concerto. All right.
I'm
And
gonna
then,
I'll interrupt right now. The
yes.
audio is coming through and it's coming through pretty well. I have a feeling if I share it now that I'm updated, it might come through even better.
Okay.
So let me try the next clip. I have it over here. I'm just gonna were you just about to play it?
I was about to play the Arkansas Symphony Orchestra premiere.
Okay. Okay, cool. Let me share my I'm just gonna share my computer audio.
Do I
Let me
stop
see.
sharing on my side now? Do I press
Um,
stop share?
yeah, you could do that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Uh,
and I'll just play the audio and then let me know if for some reason it's not coming through. Are we good?
I don't hear anything.
You can't hear it?
No.
Oh, okay, never mind. All right, you share it. I thought I fixed it. You go
Uh,
ahead.
okay. Um, right, share and share. Okay. The Arkansas Symphony Orchestra and I came together to record the concerto once again when Florence's actual authentic copies had been discovered. And to this day, I don't know who found and who turned it into Shermer, but we came together and did a recording of her actual original concerto. Here's a little bit of that. And this was in 2019. And I'll stop there. Okay. Um, I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the issues that Florence would have to encounter fairly early on in her compositional career. And that was actually on the concert that would be her premiere for the symphony. The very first composer listed on the program is by John Powell. And I don't know if anyone knows who this composer is, but John Powell was a composer, 1882 to 1963, who coined the term one drop and you're black. He was Um, Unfortunately, a composer that supported segregation and supported white supremacy. And it is interesting to note that he is the first composer on that on that program. And unfortunately, it shows the temperament of the time. However, I think it's important that we are still able to celebrate her music in spite of the many closed doors that Florence would walk around, if you will. Um, Here is a picture of not her home, but a home I thought was hers. And I keep this here because it's kind of a funny story. I went to hopefully look at and enter the home of what we thought was her home. And this home looks so close to the actual house. And so I actually entered that other house and I got a chance to see what a house looks like after having been abandoned for decades. So I can personally attest to what it can look like. But this is the actual house where her music was discovered. Her music was discovered probably after about 30 years with the roof was obviously destroyed. It was evident that animals had been living inside of the home, and this is work being done by Florence's daughter's husband and his second wife. Here is a picture of that home with Florence and her daughter, Florence Louise. Florence Louise sadly would die prematurely as well. And I had a chance to talk to Florence Louise's son, the grandson of Florence Price. And I've come to learn the reason for why the music was what we're saying abandoned. It was just from what happens in family situations. When Florence passed, her daughter tried to work with the music, tried to get the music out, but she herself would die prematurely. And at that time, Florence Louise's husband was dealing with the loss of his wife, and the son was grieving as well. And one thing leads to another, and suddenly decades have passed by, sadly. So the question might be, were there other contemporaries that might have sought this music? Yes, but it was just a very difficult journey. But we are so happy that this music survived. Here is a couple of examples of what that would look like. I went to the Library of Special Collections in Arkansas and had a chance to look at a lot of the documents. This is actually a copy of the concerto. And on the other hand, a lot of the music was preserved quite beautifully. And I like to make a point of how beautiful she actually wrote. My handwriting doesn't look anything like this, so I don't ever let anybody see what my actual scores would look like. We're going to move quickly through the earlier times. You can look at the pictures, and for the reason that will make some sense a little bit in a little bit, notice the complexion, if you can, they are black and white photos, of the grand aunts and parents. Here is a picture of Florence's mother. And from here, I will tell you a little bit about the beginnings of Florence's childhood. Florence was born in Little Rock, Arkansas. Her mother was a musician and an educator and a businesswoman, and her father was a dentist, a successful dentist. And here is a photo of apparently what she drew at quite a young age. She was obviously looking forward to a career in piano. This looks like what might be a piano studio. Um, and her parents could afford a rather luxurious life for Florence. She owned, well, her mother owned an Iverson Pond piano, which today is looked upon as one of the most expensive pianos back in the day. They had a home where they could host guests such as Frederick Douglass. Many black uh, travelers were unable to stay in what was typically deemed as whites only hotels. And so they would often have guests come. And this was another guest, Blind John Boone, who would remain in touch with Florence for years to come. Florence's mother would make sure that Florence was well prepared for the future. And so she studied Greek, Latin, algebra, history, physics, English, cooking, sewing, painting, knitting, crocheting, and was, of course, class valedictorian at the age of 14. Eventually, Florence would go on to NEC, New England Conservatory. And by the way, Florence did have an older brother, but unfortunately passed. In New England, Florence's mother wanted to protect her daughter. And so for her address, she used Pueblo, Mexico, to sort of hide the fact that Florence was actually an African American woman. And for the obvious reason, her mother was trying to protect her. And at the same time, Florence was trying to show her heritage in her music. And looking at the time, I'm going to very quickly go through a little bit of that struggle. Jim Crow laws, unfortunately, came back or began right around the time that Florence would return home from New England Conservatory after completing not one but 2 degrees, one in piano and one in organ. She was the first student to ever do that by that time. But when she returned home, the luxury in which she was accustomed at home was no longer. Because of Jim Crow laws, her father lost his job because most of his patients were white and paying with money. Her mother lost her property. Her brother was taken to jail, accused, probably without any evidence, of having assaulted a white woman. He died. And as a result, her father passed prematurely. And her mother, who I showed a picture to you of earlier, made an extraordinarily difficult decision, and that was that she would leave Little Rock and her daughter and went back to Indianapolis and slipped into white society and married a white gentleman, and on the death certificate it would say Caucasian. And so the questions that run through my mind each time that I think about this story: Florence was in her early 20s. She lost her father, she lost her brother, she lost her mother. And that's not the end. How does she move forward? How does she have the amazing strength to keep living, much less compose. And she would eventually marry. She married a lawyer, and that was around the time of 25. This actually is a picture of her husband's great grandfather. And her husband's great grandfather would own slaves, and he fathered a baby with a slave. Long story short, this is a picture of her husband as a young boy. And I bring this up because a lot of Florence's music talks about the past before her time. And when you think about when families share stories, that becomes a part of you and your life and your journey. That's what I hear a lot of in her music. And so this is a picture of Florence on the right at about the age of 33, her husband in the middle, and sitting down, the parents of her husband and her two children. The third one, understand, is she was pregnant with Edith. So I'm going to move to very quickly. There were two reasons why Florence would have to leave Little Rock. Florence left Little Rock because there was a horrific lynching. This lynching happened right at the corner of where her husband had his law practice, and it was about a half a mile away from where they lived. And the other reason, which the grandson shared with me because his mother shared with him, there was apparently a rumor that they, whoever they were, would be hunting down, kidnapping, and killing daughters of prominent Black families. And so Florence took her daughters and they escaped to Chicago. And so with that, I want to give you a taste of the materials that you would then hear in Florence's music that I say to you, she brings characteristics from West Africa, America, Europe together, and that in spite the cruelties of her own personal experiences, how she weaves this music together. Here is an example of West African dancing, and listen to the rhythms. So some of those rhythms are then brought to the plantation. The juba is one of those rhythms. Here is the sample. So that's one sample. Sorry, I gotta remember to press the right button. Plantation songs. And the cakewalk dance, which I don't know if you guys know, but apparently the cakewalk dance was a dance that was originated on the plantation by slaves who were mimicking their masters dancing. And so here is an example of what that looks like, and listen to the rhythms in that music. And now here is a bit of an example of the cakewalk in her concerto. All right. Ragtime, you probably all are familiar with ragtime. We hear a little bit of ragtime in her music. Listening to the left hand. All right. Uh-oh. Oh no. So, okay, now I have to get back to my. I pressed the wrong button. How do I get back to my actual.
What are you trying to get to? The Zoom
I'm trying to get back to my.
presentation.
Right.
Up there at the top, maybe the 20-minute Florence yellow tab. So the next left tab on the top there. One more to the right, one more to the right. There you go. Nope, you just passed over it, no?
Oh, because
Is
you
it-
know what? I can't see. There's something here that's saying to me, okay. Oh, okay. All right. Thanks. All right. She also wrote a jig, which was another African American performance. Here's something now. All right. Something now. Every time I try to advance, it's like I can't quite advance. So sorry for the repeats. But here is her jig jog. So she's my point of showing you all of these different styles of writing is that though her mother tried very hard to hide her heritage, Florence brings all of this to her music. This, one might say, she was highly influenced by George Chadwick at New England Conservatory, who was influenced by Dvorak by using the folklore of America and bringing it into the music. And I think that what Florence's message was to do exactly that, to share not only her history, to share in a way that is in a beautiful way what life could look like if we could unite all of these countries and ideas and culture and spirit together. I'll stop here because I know that we only have about 5 minutes left. So I'll stop sharing.
Thank you for sharing that, though. Appreciate it.
There's so much to talk about with Florence Price. But
Yeah, I love that. I love that sort of maybe interesting to know more about how she thought about it internally, but that kind of relentless sometimes I think in some cases it's very, very, very intentional, I don't know, maybe you have a word on it, or maybe in some cases it's kind of like, just writing the music, and not necessarily trying to make a statement. Did you feel like she was trying to make a statement by doing these things and fight against her mother or anything specific, or you know what, this music just, I'm just making the music I have to make here, and this is what it is, or a little bit of both, I guess.
I will tell you this as an experience that I happen to have. I learned that my mom grew up on land that was once owned by 2 generations ago masters. So, fast forward, I go to church, to my mom's church, and I'm listening to the choir sing when I was a young girl. I went home one day and I said, Mom, why do they sing so out of tune? And so I then heard actually a recording of a slave singing, a former slave singing, and he sounded exactly like how the church choir sang, which
Mm,
said to me, when I'm writing, I'm not really consciously saying, okay, now I am going to write an African American piece. I'm not doing that. I'm writing what comes to me for the title. My existence includes, you know, some suffrage, some uh, very difficult times, some very beautiful times in my life. All of that comes together as a composer myself. And for Florence, I think she was probably doing the same, you know, it, including the fact that she did have the support of teachers that would say, let's
mm.
use, your folklore. So I think it's a combination of both, but certainly with the beauty, the lyricism of Chopin, her poetic manners similar to Schumann, her um, her extraordinary, her heroism like a Liszt at the piano. She's using such an array of influences. So I can't say that there was any one thing, but just the combination of all.
Makes sense. Yeah, but I hear that. Um, it's an issue that a lot of people in a lot of domains face, and everyone faces it in a small degree,
Mhm,
like
mhm,
expressing what's really in there, you know.
mhm, mhm.
And it's not an easy task for, depending on the person, depending on the heritage, depending on the politics, and
Exactly.
some people are
That
way more privileged than others in that respect. Yes.
her husband's story. There's a actual book that her father wrote. Her father wrote a book, and apparently it seems to match the story of her husband. And going back to the being the great grandson of the governor of Missouri. And so that kind of stuff gets weaved into your system. And so, the product reveals itself at some point.
Well, thank you so much for your time today. We'll probably have to wrap up here pretty soon.
Yes.
Um, I will, but I'm also, we have some viewers on your Facebook. I can see there's some people watching over there. So hello to
Oh,
people on Karen's Facebook
Paul
and her.
Melissa said hi. Hello.
Do you know Paul or no?
Yeah, from
Oh,
Howard University.
oh, really? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah,
Hi,
wonderful.
Karen.
Hey, how you doing?
Good, good, good. Great to see you.
So nice to see you too.
Like your background today, Paul.
Thanks. Yep.
A little jazz band.
Appropriate. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's pretty cool. I had no idea. I know I have one friend that I invited, Susanna Sifter. I see her name here, but
Mm.
I get shy and and don't tell anyone. Don't tell anyone until after the fact.
There's Susanna's waving. Hi, Susanna.
Karen, nice to meet you, Ethan.
Thank you
Wonderful
for
job, Karen.
thank you for coming.
My pleasure.
Nice.
She's great.
Um, well, typically at this point, before I do our outro, just, leave a moment for any, little promos you want to do, websites, performances, go check this out, words of wisdom, final thoughts. So anything you want to share here before we walk it off?
Well, I'd like to share if anyone would like a download of the Florence Price, a complimentary download, if you send me an email at kwalwyn@berklee.edu. I'd be happy to share that. And if you want to hear my performances, if you go to karenwalwyn.com, you could go under videos and you'll get to hear some of the compositions that we were going to share today. But on parting words, I want to say, in the climate of today, I think Florence is an amazing model that represents what I think we can aspire to, and I hope we will survive in the beautiful way that her music has been written.
Beautiful final thoughts. Thanks for putting some thought into that. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Karen. It's been a pleasure, and
Thank you.
could tell you have a lot of support out there and fans of what you're doing, as well as us here at Piano Tech Radio Hour.
Time goes by so fast. It's so much to talk about, so little time. But thank you very much for having me.
Yeah. I'm so glad we've somewhat figured out those audio issues. I went through the whole update process on my Zoom, and I'm like, oh, this is totally still not working. So I got more research to do. But all right, well, we have reached the end of another musical journey here at Piano Tech Radio Hour. Thanks to Karen for joining us today. As always, we're brought to you by Piano Technicians Masterclass, cutting-edge instruction from piano industry masters without leaving your home. For those of you that joined us today by signing up for this session individually, you could make your life more convenient by subscribing to Piano Tech Radio Hour at just $16 a month. You get the recording of today's session in our member area, as well as automatic registration for each new session. Sign up at bit.ly/join PTRH. That's bit.ly/join PTRH. Don't forget about the podcast, pianotechradio.com, the blog on Substack. Just search Piano Technicians Masterclasses. All of our socials, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. And make sure to check out the website and sign up for the email list. And that will be it for today. Karen, I'll end the program. Zoom will close, but if you want to jump back on the Zoom, we could just do a wrap-up chat after that happens, okay?
I can jump back on Zoom.
Yeah, just click the link again to get back into Zoom.
Okay, all
Okay.
right.
Bye-bye, everybody. Thank you so much for